everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you my review for Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, the first book in the Last Hour series. So the series is a sequel to the Infernal Devices, and the main characters in these series are the children of all of our characters in the Infernal Devices. The series is set in Edwardian London, I believe in the early 1900s. Two new Shadowhunter families are coming to London at around the same time. There's a new species of demon that pops up that is able to survive in sunlight. And so it creates a lot of disturbance because the Shadowhunter population in London really hasn't had to deal with a significant amount of turbulence since the events of the Infernal Devices, so they're a little bit unprepared to be able to handle the situation. And so this whole story sort of explores that notion of what do you do when you're not prepared to handle a situation when it arises. It's actually kind of quite topical right now. Alongside that, you're also dealing with a lot of questions about origins and family trees and who people end up with. So there's lots of question marks surrounding these series that makes it really exciting to read for Shadowhunters fans or for people who maybe aren't a fan of the Shadowhunter Chronicles and give them an excuse to start reading the series. So this is now the fourth new series that we've gotten in the Shadowhunter Chronicles, so I don't want to waste any more time talking about non-spoilers. I love this book as much as I loved Cassie's other books, and depending on how this series unfolds, it could easily end up being one of my favorite Shadowhunter series yet. That's how good this book was. So I am so pumped to dive in and start discussing this book with you in all of its spoilery glory. If you have not caught up on the Shadowhunter Chronicles yet, go and catch up. Go and read all the books. While you do not need to technically have read any of the other Shadowhunter books to read Chain of Gold, I recommend reading all of them in publication order. It'll give you a better experience. You'll have more knowledge of the Shadow world and you won't get spoiled for things. So read the books in publication order, and then once you are all caught up, you can come back to this video and dive in to the discussion. But for everyone who is caught up, let's dive right into discussing spoilers. Okay, so if I were to describe Chain of Gold, I would say that it is a book where everything but almost nothing happens all at once. This book is sort of weird for me because we're in this place where this book takes place in the past, so anything that happens in it is not necessarily going to change the world of the Mortal Instruments or the Dark Artifices as we know it. Like, all those characters still exist, everything that happens in those plots still exists, all of the family trees still continue because we know characters that are a part of the same lineage as all of the other characters in the series. It's kind of this like odd feeling of like, are the stakes really that high, knowing that the world still continues, that things still end up okay in the end. At the same time, there is a lot of ambiguity and question marks in the series because for the first time in a Shadowhunter series, we're having to deal with ancestry in the family tree. I don't know about any of you lovely readers out there, but for me, I was never really too concerned with the Shadowhunters family tree. I maybe looked at it from time to time because I was a little bit curious as to how certain characters were related, or maybe I needed it for clarification, but it was never something that I actively sought out and analyzed. But this book series absolutely changes the game in that front because you're having to scour the family tree now and look at it and overanalyze it and see, does this character end up with this character? What things may or may not be true? Because essentially what Cassie has told us after this book has been released is that the family tree provided to us on the back of the hardcover for Clockwork Princess is not accurate at all, and there are some things there that are misleading. So my thing now is looking at that family tree, overanalyzing it, seeing what things we've been told and what may or may not be true, and trying to figure out why there's certain inconsistencies there and what that could mean. It's stressful, it's annoying, but it makes me curious because if certain characters don't end up together, or there's things that like we find out, it could completely change the way that we look at certain characters from the Mortal Instruments series and the Dark Artifices, because their lineage could be completely different from what it is that we know now. So it's going to provide a lot of answers, but it's not going to change things too much. It's this really, really weird place, and I kind of love it because this series could absolutely end on an explosive note and change the game in a lot of ways, and I'm really psyched to see what Cassie has in store because the most frustrating thing is that I end this book with no answers at all, just a whole bunch of questions, because there is no clear-cut answer for as to what characters are going to end up together, and I feel like that's odd for Cassie's series, because by the end of City of Bones, by the end of Lady Midnight, by the end of Clockwork Angel, I kind of had a good idea for who was going to end up with who, and it felt like you had some very strong ideas for where ships are going to lie, but that's definitely not the case with this series, and I find that so interesting. We're going to dive into the whole family tree mess because it's a total clusterfuck in this book. But before we do that, there are a few other things that I want to address that don't pertain to that mess. So for one, I want to talk about Anna Lightwood because she is such a badass. I love her, and I really hope we get to see more of her in books 2 and 3 of The Last Hours. Anna Lightwood, I think, is an interesting character, and I think we have a lot more to explore with her, but from the short story that we get in Ghost of the Shadow Market, we see her get her heart broken for the first time. She falls in love with Ariadne and then finds out that she is engaged to Charles Fairchild. That leaves Anna with a broken heart, but it also sort of leads to her coming into her own skin and being confident in who she is, because Anna is genderqueer. She dresses mainly very masculine, and so there's a lot of people in the shadow world who think she's a little bit odd, that may not necessarily agree with some of her choices, but you see that Anna doesn't really care, and now after the events of that short story in Ghost of the Shadow Market, she's on a sort of spiral where she's breaking other people's hearts so she doesn't have to get her heart broken the way that she did in that short story. I think it's really interesting because there's definitely some insecurities that are layered underneath her, but we do get to see her present this outside confidence in herself and her appearance and in her choices, and I love that about her. But I think there's a lot more deep under that we haven't gotten to explore yet that we're going to get to explore in books 2 and 3, because now Ariadne is no longer engaged to Charles Fairchild, so there's a potential for those two characters to end up together, which I think is really exciting, and I really hope that that comes together because I would love the two of them together. Another thing that Anna Lightwood does for us in this book that's absolutely fantastic is the dresses. The minute that Cassie started describing Cordelia in these very pastel dresses that washed her out, that were appropriate for the time but not appropriate for Cordelia and making her look flattering, I just knew we were going to get some sort of transformation and we were going to see her in an outfit that made her look stunning. I also found it funny that Cordelia's mom thought all of those dresses came from James, and I loved the transformation and just the way that the change in tone was conveyed when Cordelia put those new dresses on. I love the fact that Anna Lightwood was the one to give us that content because it's just so much like Anna to be like, nah, we need to fix this. And some of her moments with Cordelia and Matthew were great. I just love Anna Lightwood so much as a character, and I cannot wait to get to see more from her in this series. Other character things, the Merry Thieves, I love them all so much. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of tension between them in the next few books, but in this book they had lots of really cute bantery moments that were really fun. I think one of the dynamics that Cassie hasn't given us yet that we've gotten to see is a group of guy friends who are part of their own little clique and club, because we have lots of characters that have a squad, but it's nice to have this like very close inner circle, and I feel like we haven't seen that type of friendship dynamic yet in one of Cassie's series, and I love the way that it's presented in this book. It's just so adorable and so much fun. I love a whole bunch of school friends that are just getting together and going to picnics and getting into all sorts of hijinks. It's just so much fun to read, and all these characters have such wonderful interactions and dynamics with each other that I just love. I also love that they have a name. It reminded me a lot of Little Women in a way, except like the reverse of it, but the dynamic still felt the same, and I just loved it. Other things. We don't see any of Church in this book. Where is Church the cat? I would like to know, because I feel like Church has made an appearance in almost every single book in the Shadowhunter Chronicles in some capacity, and we haven't seen him. Where is he? Where is Church the cat? I want to know. But characters that we do get to see, we have appearances of lots of different warlocks that have appeared throughout the Shadowhunter Chronicles. We get to see Magnus Bane, we get to see Malcolm Fade, we get to see Hypatia Vex, we get to see Ragnar Fell. So it's nice to know that all of our warlock friends are doing well. I loved Magnus's appearance in this series, and I'm excited to see more of him in the upcoming books. I love that Matthew just idolizes Magnus and his look. It just, oh, it makes me so happy, and I love the dynamic between the two of them, and I really hope that they become close friends because, oh, Matthew Fairchild deserves it. We also get to see the Infernal Devices crew return, so we get to see Will, Jem, and Tessa, Gideon and Gabriel, Sophie, Cecily. I just love them all to pieces. One of the things that I think Cassie does really well with her books is that she manages to give appearances of past characters, but not allow them to overshadow all the new characters that you're meeting in the series. You feel very satisfied by their appearances and by their presence within the world, and you know that they're there and that they're doing well, but they don't overshadow your main characters. You don't feel like you're missing those characters at all. It's just a really great balance, and I don't know an author that's able to just have such a massive cast of characters and be able to create that dynamic. So props to Cassie for being able to continually pull that off, because I loved getting to see Will, Jem, and Tessa in this series. I think there's a funny moment that's sort of implied that like Will makes fun of James for being a layaway, which I thought was hysterical and so much like Will. There's lots of really cute Will moments in this book that I love, and there's a really, really heartbreaking, devastating moment where Will finds out about his parents' death, and he just cries into Jem's robes, and he's with Tessa, and the three of them are all together, and it just feels so reminiscent of the Infernal Devices and those characters that we love, and they still feel so youthful, and I just love them, and it was just such a beautiful scene. I loved their appearances in this book, and I'm just happy that they were there and they were represented well, and I knew they would be. I had to talk about it anyway. I think I got through everything that I wanted to get through on that front.